You think humans invented alcohol, right? Some brilliant ancient chemist mixing things in a clay pot, stumbling onto fermentation. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you in history class, humans didn't invent alcohol. We inherited a taste for it from our ancestors, our primate ancestors. The craving for alcohol is roughly 10 million years old, and the real story of how and why humans started drinking is so bizarre, so ancient, so hardwired into your biology, that you'll never look at a glass of wine or a ripe banana the same way again.
Huh?
Let's go back, way, way back. About 10 million years ago, our ancestors weren't humans yet. They were apes, living in trees and tropical forests, and their entire diet was fruit. Now here's where it gets interesting. Ripe fruit, really ripe fruit, contains ethanol. The same alcohol that's in your beer. Not much, maybe 1 or 2% alcohol, but enough to smell, enough to taste, and our ape ancestors developed something extraordinary because of it, a genetic mutation, one that made them 40 times better at processing ethanol than other primates. Scientists call this the Drunken Monkey Hypothesis, and yes, that is its real name. Here's why this mutation was actually genius from an evolutionary standpoint. The most ripe, most calorie-dense fruit was the fermented fruit. The stuff that smelled alcoholic. If you could follow that smell, if you could find that fruit before any other animal did, you survive. The mutation didn't make apes get drunk. It made them get fed. Alcohol was a compass, a GPS pointing to calories. And that hardwired love of the smell, the taste, the warmth of alcohol, we inherited every bit of it. Fast forward about 9 million years. Humans now standing upright, making tools, being clever. Around 10,000 BC, the same time farming was starting, something happened in kitchens, storage pots, and grain stores. Grain got wet, fruit got left out, and wild yeast, which exists literally everywhere in the air, did its thing. Fermentation happened. By accident, again and again, and somebody, we don't know who, we don't know where, took a sip and didn't hate it. The oldest confirmed alcoholic beverage in human history was found in China. In Jiahu, dated to around 7000 BC. It was a mix of rice, honey, and hawthorn fruit. Basically the world's first cocktail. Patrick McGovern at the University of Pennsylvania found the chemical traces in pottery shards, residue from 9,000 years ago. But here's where archaeologists start fighting each other, academically with footnotes. For decades, the assumption was humans invented farming to grow grain and then used leftover grain to make beer. But then researchers found something that flipped the whole story upside down. At a 13,000-year-old site in Israel called Raqefet Cave, carved stone mortars were found, and the residue inside them, wheat and barley, deliberately fermented, turned into a kind of beer. 13,000 years ago, before farming, before pottery, before cities, before basically everything we call civilization. The theory, humans didn't start farming to make bread. They started farming to make beer. The desire to drink may have launched human civilization. Now, here's the assumption modern people make. Ancient humans drank to get drunk, to have fun, to forget about the mammoths. But for thousands of years, the main reason people drank alcohol had nothing to do with fun. It was medicine. Ancient Egyptians prescribed beer for at least 200 documented medical conditions. Headache, beer. Stomach pain, beer. Difficult childbirth, beer. And this wasn't stupidity. Alcohol actually does relieve pain, reduce anxiety, and critically kill bacteria. In a world with no antibiotics, no painkillers, and extremely questionable water quality, alcohol was genuinely useful. Ancient Mesopotamian clay tablets, some of the oldest writing in the world, contain beer ration records for workers. But alcohol wasn't just medicine. It was also the closest thing ancient humans had to a direct line to the divine. Every ancient culture, Egyptian, Greek, Mesopotamian, Celtic, Mesoamerican, had a god of alcohol. Osiris in Egypt, Dionysus in Greece, Ninkasi in Sumer, the goddess of brewing herself. Ninkasi had an entire hymn written in her honor around 1800 BC, and embedded in the hymn secretly was the world's oldest known beer recipe. Think about that. The world's oldest beer recipe was hidden inside a prayer. Drinking wasn't a secular activity. It was religious, Communal, sacred, getting altered wasn't about escapism. It was about access, getting closer to whatever was beyond the visible world. Of course, ancient humans had no idea what fermentation was. They didn't know about yeast. They didn't know about ethanol. They didn't know about chemistry at all. What they knew was, leave grain or fruit in water long enough, and something magical happens. It bubbles. It transforms. It smells different. It feels different when you drink it. To ancient people, this was magic, or more accurately, this was the gods. The process happening inside that pot, yeast consuming sugars and producing ethanol as a waste product, wouldn't be scientifically understood until 1857. So for about 9,000 years of deliberate brewing, humans made alcohol without having any idea how. The recipe worked. The reason didn't matter. The result was divine. Literally. There's another reason ancient humans drank so much alcohol that we've almost completely forgotten about. Water killed people. Before clean water infrastructure existed, and that's most of human history, rivers and wells were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and human waste. Drinking untreated water was genuinely dangerous. People died of cholera, dysentery, typhoid. But fermented drinks. The alcohol killed the pathogens. Beer was safer than water. Wine was safer than water. Medieval Europeans, including children, drank what they called small beer, about 1% alcohol all day, every day. Not to get drunk, not for fun, because it was the safest available liquid on Earth. Now, here's where it gets genuinely mind-bending. In 1994, archaeologists began excavating a site in southeastern Turkey called Göbekli Tepe. It is the oldest known temple complex in the world. Massive stone pillars up to 6 meters tall, carved with animals, built around 11,500 years ago. Here's the thing that stumped everyone. There was no farming nearby, no permanent settlement, nothing to explain why thousands of people gathered here. And then archaeologists found massive stone vessels near the site, capable of holding up to 160 liters of liquid. Chemical analysis confirmed. Those vessels were used to ferment grain into beer. The theory now gaining serious archaeological weight, alcohol communal drinking, is what brought people together to build the first monument in human history. Before religion, before farming, before writing, drinking together might be what created human community. And this makes a strange kind of evolutionary sense. Humans are extraordinarily social animals. We survive not through individual strength, but through cooperation. But cooperation requires trust, and trust between strangers is genuinely hard to build. Shared rituals help, shared meals help, shared danger helps, and shared intoxication, it turns out, helps a lot. Research shows alcohol uniquely promotes feelings of bonding, warmth, and social trust. Robin Dunbar, the Oxford anthropologist who studies human social bonds, found that people who drink together report significantly tighter social bonds than those who don't. Not because alcohol is healthy, but because shared vulnerability creates connection. So let's come back to where we started. You're at a party, someone hands you a drink. It seems simple, casual, modern. But what you're actually holding is the product of 10 million years of primate evolution, 9,000 years of deliberate human brewing, and a biological craving baked into your DNA before your species even existed. That feeling of warmth you get from a first sip, that's not weakness. That's a 10-million-year-old neurological signal saying, you found the right fruit, you made it, you survived another day. That doesn't mean alcohol is good for you. Plenty of modern science says the opposite, but it does mean the relationship between humans and alcohol isn't a modern weakness or a cultural failure. It is one of the longest, strangest, most complicated relationships in all of natural history. So here's where we actually are on this timeline. 10 million years ago, our ape ancestors developed the ability to process alcohol because fermented fruit meant survival. 13,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers in Israel are deliberately brewing grain into beer before farming even exists. 11,000 years ago, people may have gathered at Göbekli Tepe, driven partly by communal brewing, and accidentally invented organized religion. And today, we're still figuring out what to do with all of it. We've turned it into an industry worth over $2 trillion globally. We've written laws about it, wars about it, entire religions against it. And through all of it, from the jungle canopy to the cocktail bar, the basic chemistry hasn't changed. Ethanol is ethanol. Your body responds to it exactly like your ape ancestors did. So, do you think humans would have built civilization without alcohol, or did the drink come first? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know what you think. And if this made you look at something ordinary, something in your hand right now, and see 10 million years of history in it, that's exactly what this channel is for. History isn't just old stuff. It's alive in your cells, your cravings, your biology, right now. See you in the next one.